Sounds okay. All right. Good evening. Welcome to Tasting Tuesdays. It's 7 p.m. on the dot, on the nose. Let's give it a minute or two. Welcome everybody. Talking about an incredible wine tonight, Cabernet Sauvignon. First one on, Trish Seinwell. Hi to Trish and Jeff. Marsha Sugameli with your incredible watch party. Good evening to Marsha and Dennis. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's see who else is there. Valerie Shindell, Mom, how are you? It's good to see you. Let's see. Laura Brown, good evening. Linda Irvin, so lovely to see you at the winery the other day. Really appreciate it. Mary Grablunas, thank you. Lanny White, lovely to see you. And Suzanne, thank you for coming out. Kelly Goff, good evening to you. Kathy Harden, hi, hello. Laura Purdy, Grady Mendenhall from Houston, Texas. Go Texans. There's Maureen Scott. Sorry I missed you on Sunday. I heard you worked in the tasting room. Sorry I missed you, but thank you. Lovely to see you. Love to your family. Susan Crandall, Jana Morrison from David. Hello. Sean Fleischman. Drinking for two tonight. Well, Lindsay's on a work call. Well, thank you for having us. Say hi to Lindsay. The Mathises are with the Sugamelis. Good evening, Kathy Clifton. Hello, sweetheart. It's nice to see you. Love to your family. Marlene, Michelle Potts, Janice Bryan. Good evening. Brenda Kelsey, Lynn, John. We have an incredible bunch of people. Let's give it one more minute. Just make sure everyone gets here. And if that's okay, Terry Hauser, Jess Nelson. Good evening to you and Kat. Jess Nelson says hello, Kat. She says hi back. Can you guys give me a thumbs up? You can see and hear me okay? I hope that's the case. Hello from Reston, Virginia. Kimberly Anshel. Good evening to you. Adam Rockhill. Cindy Schoenberg. Hi, Cindy. Let's see. Virginia Winetime. Paul and Warren. Fantastic. So incredible to see everyone. We're going to give it just one more minute. And we got a lot to talk about. Pretty exciting wine we're going to dive into tonight. If you don't have it, we're talking about our 2016 Estate Reserve Cab Sav. If you don't have it, grab your favorite bottle of Keswick wine. If you don't have a Keswick wine, make sure it's Virginia. Let's have some fun. Let's ask some questions. Let's learn something. The Goofy shirt. He's my man. I've always been a big Goofy fan. Happy birthday to him. He was 88 years old on Sunday. And I think in today's times, we can all learn to be a little bit goofy. Gotta rock the Goofy shirt. Beth Smith, lovely to see you on Saturday, albeit from a distance. But thank you so much for coming out. So it's 7:03. And let's begin because we have a lot to talk about. We have an incredible wine to delve into tonight, and that's our Cabernet. As always, we want to make sure that number one, we send our best wishes to you and your families, hoping you're well and that you've had an incredible weekend. Happy Memorial Day. God bless all our servicemen, our servicewomen, anyone in the armed forces. You have our respect and our thanks for everything that you do for us. I had a great day today. Partly because I went to Giant and I found 2 rolls of toilet paper. And how crazy is it when you get excited about walking out of a store with toilet paper? But all right, so hope you guys are well. Thank you for joining us. We really, really, really appreciate it. A couple of shout outs, if I may. Firstly, to Mark and Carrie Kutsia in the BVI. Congratulations on the birth of Samuel. He's adorable. Glad your family is doing well. So cheers, mate. Mark's my oldest friend in South Africa. To Kathy Clifton, just a long-time friend of ours and just an amazing human being. Thank you so much for everything. To all our wonderful staff, happy birthday to Sybil. It's her birthday, I believe, in a couple of days. She came out today. And then also want to just mention the Stovers, Rich, Katie, Pam. We're thinking about you guys. God bless you. Hope you're doing well. So let's jump into it. As always, if you have some questions, please shoot it this way. We'd love to answer everything that you have. If we don't get to it tonight, we will get on tomorrow morning and answer every question that there is. It's very important too. So shoot us a message. Kath is here, kind of moderating, and I will answer them as soon as I can. So welcome to the time where we forget about the craziness of the world. It's a good time to swirl, sniff, and sip. And tonight I'm excited because we're talking about one of my favorite wines on the property. And again, just to show you, it's Cabernet Sauvignon 2016. So the first question I had was from Dennis. Is it 100%? No, it's not. It's got 2% Petit Verdot. We'll talk about why that is. But we're going to talk about Virginia, viticulturally. How does it do? Why we can, at Keswick Vineyards, get away with making Cabernet most years. How does the wine taste? What do you think about it? I'd love to get your opinions on the Cabernet. And then we're going to talk about our June bundles. We're going to talk about some other things that we're doing that's worth mentioning, how you can get this incredible wine. There's only a few cases left. And then talk about some food and wine and music and how we open. So if it sounds great, let's jump right into it. So Cabernet Sauvignon, what is it a name? It was totally misunderstood, and for many years the word Sauvignon was believed to be sort of derived from the French word sauvage, meaning wild grape. And only recently in 1996, Dr. Carol Meredith, they actually traced through the UC Davis Department of Viticulture and Enology, the DNA kind of let us know that it is actually a natural crossing between Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Franc, hence the name Cabernet Sauvignon. So Cabernet Franc, everyone knows in Virginia, an incredible varietal. Sauvignon Blanc, not so much, it doesn't do well in the region per se. It does well very site-specific. Think of Linden, think of Veritas, Glen Manor, folks that have elevation over 900 feet, does incredibly well. So Cabernet Sauvignon is a product of those two grapes. Sauvignon Blanc is obviously a Bordeaux grape. It does make with Semillon and Muscadet some incredible wines. Also in the Sauternes makes incredible dessert wines, and then obviously Cabernet Franc. It makes some incredible wines along with Merlot on the right bank of Bordeaux. You're talking about Pomerol and Saint-Emilion. But for a grape that is relatively new in terms of being identified, it is a major player in the world of wine. If you think of any region, you think of sort of Israel and France and Spain and Italy and Australia and New Zealand and South Africa and South America and California and up and down the East Coast into New York, you're going to find versions of this varietal. It is arguably one of the top sort of varietals. A lot of people would say Pinot Noir as far as reds, but it's definitely a noble varietal. I put it along with Syrah and Pinot Noir. Cabernet is an incredible and kind of grape. Now, Virginia is not the easiest sort of climate in which to grow Cabernet, and that's because of our climate. And what I want to talk a little bit about is Virginia. We're regarded as a subtropical humid climate, right? And then there's a general classification of worldwide climatic zones, and it's called the Winkler Index. And what it basically does is it actually divides all the growing regions into 5 regions. And it's defined by growing degree days or growing degree units. So the first thing is, what is that? So we're summarizing or kind of hypothesizing that grapes only grow from April 1st through October 31st. And they only grow above temperatures of 50 degrees. So 50 degrees is what we call our temperature base. Now, a growing degree unit is the average of the high and the low minus the temperature base. In other words, if we had a day that hit 90 degrees, our low was 60, that's 150 divided by 2 is 75. You take away the temperature base of 50, and you have 25 growing degree units. Now, in the course of April 1st through October 31st, Virginia gets around 3,442 growing degree units, which really puts us on the upper end of region 3. The thing about Cabernet is where it really thrives and does incredibly well is in warmer regions. So Virginia has a tendency to sometimes not have the ability to ripen this varietal, because if you know the vintage variation that we get, you look at years like 2011, you look at years like 2018, and some years in the middle, we just, no matter what we do viticulturally, the weather doesn't support us ripening this varietal. So the first thing we talk about is, this is not a wine we're going to do each and every year. Now, our vineyards were planted in 2000, and Cabernet was one of the original plantings, but back then it was thought of as a blending component. We have a 7-acre block, which we refer to as Block 7, and that had Malbec, Merlot, Cab Sav, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, which is a very classic Bordeaux blend. Carmenere is the other red Bordeaux grape that we can use. Now, subsequently, we pulled out the Malbec and we planted initially more Merlot. And then, we were making wine. So in 2002, we made a blend, Heritage. To explain Heritage, because I get this question a lot, we weren't making a traditional Bordeaux blend in 2002. It included 10% of Touriga Nacional, and Touriga is a Portuguese varietal. We spoke about it last week. So therefore, the name was Heritage. 2003, an incredibly wet vintage. We didn't do any varietal wines. 4, 6, and 7, we were doing the Heritage wine. Now in 2007, that was the first time that we made a varietally labeled Cabernet Sauvignon. Because remember, you can label it a varietal, but it doesn't necessarily mean there's 100% of that grape in that wine. So in 2007, we made our Heritage, which was 80% Cabernet, 20% Merlot. And then we fell in love with the Cabernet, and we decided to come out with a varietal Cab Sav. And that's really the start of what is a program that I have fallen in love with. So we did a Cab Sav 7. We were lucky enough, it won the Governor's Cup, which was really incredible. 2008, we skipped it. Because again, the philosophy is, these wines are always better than last year's, but never as good as the next. We never want to make a wine and just slap a label on. We really believe it has to build upon its predecessors, right? So in 2008, we had a good vintage. We didn't have a great vintage. So we made an incredible Trevelyan. We blended the wine away. But then in 2009 and 2010, we really came and made varietals, 100% Cabernet Sauvignon varietals. We skipped 11 because of the wet year. 12 was sort of a bounce back year. But then 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, we were blessed with being able to make 5 vintages of Cab. Again, in 18, we knew very, very early on that we were never going to make anything that could sort of build upon the 17, which was phenomenal. And then we went to 19, and 19 is an incredible, incredible vintage. And those wines are aging and maturing. And then we're back to our varietal program. So very rarely do we blend. A little bit of Petit Verdot in the past. The 2% really, to answer the question, Dennis, was we had a tank, we racked all the wines in. We didn't want to leave the tank sort of with a bit of a headspace, so we topped it off with Cabernet. We measured it, came out at 2%. Is it really something that changes the blend dramatically? No, but Petit Verdot can give color, it can give tannin, and can give acidity to the wine as well. So a lot of California Cabernets have Petit Verdot in them as well. So why does Cabernet, why do we have a chance to make Cabernet at Keswick? What is it about our vineyard that gives us the chance to make this incredible, incredible wine? Well, it's purely soil. We have a low-lying vineyard, only 575 feet elevation. But unlike the clay, which is in that vineyard behind me, in the back, we have much more drained soils. We have rocky soils with lots of granite and schist and shale. And one thing that soil does is it mitigates and it drains water. It evacuates water out of the vineyard. We also find that those soils are a lot warmer because a lot of those rocks and the stones and the shale, they radiate the heat. Now, heat is incredibly important to Cabernet Sauvignon. Why is that? Because when you pick the grape, it has to be ripe. Now, what is ripeness? Ripeness, is it sugar? Is it acid? Is it pH? Is it seed color? Is it the color of the skins when you crush them in there? Because when you crush a black grape, you actually get white juice. was the anthocyanins, which are the color pigments there in the skins. Is it how it tastes? Is it all of that? And it is. We look at so many parameters, but we are looking at no green sort of flavors. When we speak about Cabernet Franc, you always talk about something called methoxypyrazine, isopropyl isobutyl methoxypyrazine. And what that essentially means is that it's the bell pepper, the capsicum flavors in Cabernet Franc. Now, when you talk about Cabernet Franc, greenness, herbaceousness, some sort of vegetal kind of character is somewhat accepted. In a lot of cases, it's seen as a positive. If you think of Saumur Champagny or you think of the Loire, they have that sort of leafiness and that herbaceousness. When you come to Cabernet Sauvignon, that is not accepted at all. You're looking for dark fruits, rich, expressive sort of flavors, and we want to minimize that sort of methoxypyrazine or that pyrazinic character. So number one, I think Cabernet is a product of the environment, the effect of terroir. And terroir is that word that sort of describes all the environmental influences, the soil, the elevation, the road direction, the place in where it grows. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that makes us unique from a viticultural point of view is the vineyard. Because even if people plant Cabernet, they cannot exactly replicate our vineyard. So our philosophy before we even make this beautiful wine is that, number one, we have to have a chance to get it ripe, and that's Mother Nature. And Mother Nature can be a blessing and she can be a curse. Number two, we have to get into the vineyard and we have to viticulturally stay on top of that fruit, because Cabernet Sauvignon is actually very vigorous. It's very leafy. So we have to do a lot of sort of canopy management. Canopy management might be opening up the canopy by removing leaves. We might remove it on the east side, which is the cooler side, versus the west side, which is the warmer side. The southern facing slopes, are warmer than the northern facing slopes. You want to find that balance between having canopy and ripening the fruit, but you also want sunlight and heat to get in there, because that's how you ripen those flavors. That's how you go from sort of green flavors and spicy to more sort of blueberry, blackberry, and very, very savory. So a couple of things right now. We have about 10 acres planted. So our first vineyard was planted in 2000. Then we planted an additional Cab Sav vineyard in 2005. And then we planted a bigger one in 17 and an even bigger one in 18. Now, why did it take us so long to plant it? Number one, we really are still in the process of learning where the grapes grow, how they grow, which parts of the vineyard allow us to plant which varietals. And we were looking for a very specific soil type, because our terroir in Virginia is defined mainly by water. How much water, when it comes, it increases the berry size, it amplifies the disease pressure. A lot of times it necessitates when you pick. So site and planting on the correct site is incredibly important. Now we have 5, 7 to 10% gradient hills, very slow runoff, but we have that incredible soil. The other thing we did, we planted much more densely, meaning an acre is 43,560 squared feet. Now, if you are planting 9 by 6, and what I mean by that, 9 feet between the rows, 6 feet between each plant, you have 808 vines per acre. Now, to give the math, just say we have 1,000 vines, and you want to produce 5 tons an acre. Every plant has to produce 10 pounds of fruit. But what happens if you had 2,000 vines in the same acre? All you had to do was produce 2.5 pounds to get the same tonnage per acre. But the vine will have a better ability to produce less fruit, and hopefully what that means, the quality goes up. So when we planted, we didn't go 9 by 6, we went 9 by 3. Instead of 808 vines per acre, we're now anywhere between 12 and 1,600 vines per acre. We chose better clones. We chose rootstocks. What is a rootstock? A rootstock is the underground part of the vine that is different to the vine that you see. Generally, the vitis vinifera, which is the fruit-bearing part, is generally French in origin. The root system is generally American in origin. The reason for that is American root systems have an affinity to kind of heal themselves and not be destroyed by phylloxera. So when you have the choice of clone, you also have the choice of rootstock. So you have the choice of soils, and you look at all your nutrients in the soils, and then you pick the soil and the clone that you think will do well. You need help from Mother Nature. You need to be very diligent in the vineyard, and then, and only then, do you have the chance to pick amazing fruit. Because at the end of the day, it's the quality of the products, the quality of the grape, that at least gives you the chance to create a wine that is expressive, individualistic. But with Cabernet, we're not talking anything green. We're talking about, big blue and dark fruits, big fine-grained tannins, and then we'll talk about how we produce it and how we make it in the winery, because Cabernet can really be melded by the winemaker. If you have this incredible fruit, you can talk about everything we can do in the winery. So let's dive into the wine a little bit, talk about some of the things we think about in the cellar, and then perhaps answer some questions if there are any. So firstly, I've been decanting this for 2 hours. I don't think it needs a lot longer than that. It is a young wine. 2016, this wine was matured for 22 months. It was bottled in August of 2018. So in terms of its evolution, it's young. But I only gave it a 2-hour decant, which I think is absolutely fine. So my glass is not a big aerated glass. We always talk about exposure and oxygen. I've gone with a different type of glass, just a little bit thinner. What I like about that is it really sort of concentrates the aromatics in sort of the edge here. But we talk a lot about color not being the sort of the quality factor, meaning the darker the wine, not the better the wine it is, right? But with Cabernet, I think the psychological part of drinking wine is first visual, right? If I were to pour Cabernet in your glass and it's pink and you could look through it, you might be like, something's wrong. That's not what I expect of Cabernet. So firstly, this wine is not shy. It's extracted. It's sort of that inky. It has maybe that sort of garnet rim. It's pretty uniform. Color can tell you a little bit of age, perhaps, especially if the color turns a little bit sort of brick red and it has that sort of oxidation there as well. But more importantly, it's how does the wine smell? And again, you got to give it a good swirly swirl before you can give it a good sniffy sniff. So remember, we're volatilizing aromatics, and volatility again means the ability to vaporize. So give it a good swirl, take your nose and stick it right in the glass. Get one impression. Don't just throw it down your gullet. Get right back in there again and get it a good sniff. So, the other thing is let a wine breathe. And if it doesn't breathe, give it mouth to mouth. All right. So initially, I get a lot of sort of fruits. You always talk about classic cassis. What is cassis? Cassis is blackcurrant. I get a lot of blueberry and blackberry. And then I get a lot of sort of chocolatey tones. Not so much espresso and mocha, which you can get as well. But I think there's this really lovely milk chocolate on the bottom end as well. But it's got a really sort of pure, savory kind of nose. There's perhaps a little bit of sort of Provençal herbs in there. A nice herbaceousness, but not sort of green. And then once you've smelt it, what you're starting to think is, will I taste what I smell? So let's dive in. So cheers to all of you. All right. Okay. So when we talk about Cabernet, we know first and foremost from a business model, this wine will be available to our customers many years before we think the wine will reach its peak. In other words, these wines are approachable and you can drink them. But if you don't mind sort of having patience and putting a wine down for a while, these wines are meant to age. So the first thing for me that I get is I get this really vibrant acidity, and it's weird to talk about acidity with reds because you always talk about tannin and oak and structure, but what acidity does is it balances that out. Again, the four components of wine: alcohol, acid, fruit, and tannin. Balanced wines are when all the components in the wine are harmonious. It cannot be that acidic where all you get is this tart sort of crunchiness, and it cannot be that tannic. So it sucks the moisture out. We want tannins, but we want soft grain tannins, supple tannins, silky tannins. You don't want astringent, you don't want coarse. But that's the first taste. And again, your first taste really is going to reflect what you've had for dinner, what you've kind of drunk before. So again, put it in the mouth, think of it like mouthwash, rinse it around, and then let's answer some questions and see what you think. Okay, it's got tannins, but what I love about this wine is, firstly, the aromatics are so amplified and so expressive. You know, it's got really lovely acidity, which for me means this wine's probably got another 5, 6, 7 years in the cellar. But the tannins are what I really love about this wine. You know, tannins come from seeds and stems and grapes, and obviously from oak itself. But the quality of the tannins really sort of reflects, maybe not so much initially the winemaking per se, but it also reflects the quality of the fruit. And these tannins are so soft and supple, but they're not so soft that the wine just falls apart. I mean, I can still taste this wine in the mouth. It's a big wine, but it's very fresh. It's very vibrant. You know, the alcohol is sort of medium plus. When we talk about high alcohol wines, we're talking 15, 16. You know, I don't think you need a lot of alcohol in wine to make a big wine. If you think the way we are going to move forward is by looking east. And what I mean by that is we look to our Bordeaux and our French counterparts to really learn how to make wines that have finesse and elegance and restraint. But French wines can age 20, 25, 30 years. How is that? And I think it's the acidity and getting that ripeness right. The way we make it very quickly, 5 more minutes about the wine, and then we'll answer the questions. This is all hand-picked. It's a blend of our 2 blocks, our block 7 and our block 3. The block 7 is the older of the 2. It's much more structured. It's much more tannic when it comes out. It's very, very tight, and it's sort of aromatically muted initially in the cellar. Block 3 is very much the polar opposite. It has that sort of violets and lavender. I mean, it's expressive right from the get-go. It's got beautiful color, but it's got freshness and vibrancy. It doesn't quite have the tannic structure of the Block 7. So these really work well together, a blend of both. It's aged for 22 months in 27% new oak, which is not a lot. Cabernet has an affinity for oak. A lot of winemakers put a lot of new oak on wine. In some parts of the world, they put 200% new oak on the Cabernet. And what I mean by that is they age the wine for 1 year in new barrels. They take it out of those new barrels and they put them in brand new barrels again. For me, we never want you to taste a barrel. We never want you to smell a barrel, taste a barrel, and try and look for the fruit. You know, I think that is when you have incredible fruit in an incredible growing season, you know, the oak can be subtle. It could show restraint. It's still there. It's going to give you that structure and that length and that weight and that texture. But we really want you to taste is the purity of fruit and, again, the terroir. Because when it tastes and smells like a barrel, this wine is like 100 wines out there. But when it smells and tastes like where it's grown, now we're talking about individualism. Now we're talking about a wine that's unique. Food pairings, you know, obviously with a wine this tannic, it can stand up to any sort of meat dishes. You know, it can go with earthier, like mushrooms and truffles. It can go with sort of spice-rubbed, coffee-rubbed meats. You know, filet mignon, obviously. You can go very classic. Braised meats, short ribs, stuff like that. It's a very sort of food-friendly and versatile wine. 2016 Estate Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon. It's been a while since I've tried this wine. I'm excited to see how this wine is evolving. But I'm excited to see how it's going to taste in the next sort of 3, 4, 5, you know, up to about 10 years. We often get the question of how long can you age our wine? The honest answer is we don't quite know. You know, and what I mean by that is, again, whenever you drink a wine, whatever wine it is, the pleasure of drinking a wine has to be positive. It has to be emotive. It has to be intellectual, but it's got to give you joy. Right? The only reason you would age a wine would be to amplify that tasting experience. The thing we don't want to do is to say, put this aside for 10 years. You put it aside for 10 years, you wait for it, you have that moment, you buy the wine, you drink the wine, and all of a sudden you're disappointed. The wine shows volatility. It shows acetic acid or nail polish, which a wine can do. We always want to make sure that you can drink a wine knowing that it had 3, 4, 5 more years in the bottle versus drinking a wine saying that you get to have it, that you 3 years past drinking it. But I think under correct cellar facilities, again, mid to high 50s, away from sunlight, temperature doesn't fluctuate that much, would be perfect. Yeah, I love this wine. It's beautiful. It's been a while since I've had it, but it's fresh, it's vibrant, it's balanced. I think it speaks of a wonderful growing season and an incredible vineyard. As a winemaker, that's all you want. You want this incredible fruit, and you really want to be minimalistic. And when I mean minimalistic, it doesn't mean I don't do anything and my team doesn't do anything. It just means we have to do less because everything's there. It's dark because the color is there to be extracted. You don't have to sort of coerce flavors out of the wine. They're expressive naturally. We don't do long macerations. We don't cook the fruit. We don't pick at elevated sugar levels. We don't want that sort of raisinated kind of character. We want the oak to really balance the acid and the tannins. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that this communicates in a glass the fact that it was grown on a beautiful part of our site that is Keswick Vineyards. This really is a vineyard and vintage derived Cabernet. So I hope you love it. I hope you enjoy it. I'll answer some of the questions if there are. I think there's been a few coming in. So let me turn it over to Kath, and we'll see how it goes.
Adam Rothko asked, you keep talking about how great 2019 is. What should he be most excited for about 2019? What should he be looking forward to most?
Yeah, so 2019, thank you, Adam. He was saying that we talk a lot about 2019 and was an incredible vintage. What should he be excited about? Everything. As a winemaker, I'm excited about every varietal. Whether it's the V squared and the Viognier that we did in the tank, or the wines that are going to see 2 to 3 years in the barrel. At the end of the day, as a consumer, you've got choices. If you like fresh, vibrant, tank fermented wines, you want the slightly heavier oak-driven whites. You want the sort of the lighter reds or the heavier reds. They're all incredibly phenomenal, and they really do speak to an incredible vintage. My personal favorites, I am in love with our Chardonnay. I love the V squared, the rose. I love everything actually, and it comes across as sort of salesy sometimes, but it's very rare that we get a vintage like 2019 where we've picked the grapes on our schedule, where they've reached all our parameters, where we have the fruit on the crush pad that allows us to make the style of wine that we intended it to make. So it comes down to you, Adam. What do you like? What do you want to buy? What do you feel like drinking? There's not a wine from 2019 that I think will disappoint. It all depends on your style. But top to bottom, incredible vintage, like the 17, like the 14, and like the 10, like the 9. I think you're going to be spoiled for choice from Keswick and Virginia as a whole. It was just a phenomenal. But thank you for the question. Really appreciate it, Adam. Hope you're doing well, sir.
Dennis Sugamelli wants to test your memory.
Oh.
The 2013 Cab Sav have 5% super dip.
The 2013 Cab Sav, testing my memory. Not 100% sure. I don't believe it did. I think it was 100% Cab Sav. But I'm not 100% sure. So why don't you let me know? I love the 13. That was the first time we made Cab after 10. We skipped 2 years, so we were chomping at the bit to make that Cabernet, and it's a beautiful wine. It's now coming up to 5 years in the bottle, so if you have that open, I would love to know how it's tasting. But thank you, Dennis. Appreciate the question.
And John Franz asked, why do you choose different types of bottles? Some have false bottoms, some don't, some are narrow, some are wider.
The bottle itself doesn't really have an impact on the wine. I think it's more traditional. The Burgundian shape for our Viognier and our Chardonnay, the Bordeaux. We do 2 Bordeauxs. We do a slightly tapered bottle. That's just for our high-end wines, our Signature Series, our Cab Sav, and our Reserve Petit Verdot. Everything goes in very sort of traditional bottles, but there's no reason why the Cab Sav couldn't go into a Burgundy. So it's a question of choice. I think we are traditionalists, so we follow the misnomer of sort of the Bordeaux shape, but it's just bottles that we like. We're working with a different bottle company this year. We're constantly looking at bottles. We also want to be very, very sort of conscious of the carbon footprint, because at the end of the day, we could put it in a really sort of heavy bottle, thick bottle with a thick punt. That's great. Psychologically, when you pick up that bottle, you're going to go, this is a serious wine. But we also want to be environmentally conscious. We also want to make sure that our carbon footprint and our footprint on the environment is minimal. So we've been looking at, thinner glass, lighter bottles. But there's no rule. It's very much what you feel comfortable with. And these are just sort of really elegant sort of bottles that I think also communicate the house, the manor house on the property, and hopefully the style of the wine. But great question. The shape and style of the bottle, I think, is all personal. It's there's no rule when it comes to what wine you put in one bottle, but really cool.
And then Love Wine Dog asked, and you might have answered this already, how long to age this particular wine in 2016?
The question was, how long could you age it? The first thing we want to talk about is, are you aging it in an environment that allows the wine to age appropriately? And what I mean by that is, you don't want to put it in your kitchen cabinet above the oven where, it's 100 degrees and 30 degrees and 100 degrees and 30 degrees. You want to put it in an area where the temperature is fairly consistent, where the temperature is a bit cooler. And I think, personally, just by tasting this, I would say this would see another 5, 6, 7 years very, very comfortably under those conditions. I'm looking at the cork. I don't know if you can see it. The cork, it's not showing sort of any saturation of wine. This is a Diam 10. Diam is a technical cork. First and foremost, we wanted to make sure that we wouldn't have any cork taint. When you talk about cork taint, you're talking about 2,4,6 trichloroanisole, and that is a chlorinated sort of compound that can render the wine undrinkable. And Diam 10 is a cork that's designed for 10 years of aging, which is our comfort level of sort of recommending our Cabernet. Again, our first Cabernet we made was in 2007. I've had that 7 and it was bottled in 8, so it's been 11 or 12 years, and it's good. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you drink the wine and you get pleasure from it. And I would feel more comfortable saying 5, 6, 7 years than saying 8, 9, 10. Do I believe this wine has got the structure, the acidity, and the vintage that probably could see that long? Absolutely. But my responsibility is to make sure you, the consumer, has this wine and is not disappointed by drinking it. Whether you drink it at day 1, week 1, month 1, or year 1, it has to be pleasurable. So I would say another 5, 6, 7 years comfortably. This wine is going to be beautiful and elegant. It's really going to showcase the strength of the vintage. I think a lot of what we're tasting right now is a bit primary, meaning that you're tasting a lot of how the wine was made. I still get a little bit of oak. I still get a little bit of fruit. I get a lot of sort of winemaking characteristics. I think with time, you're really going to see, that sort of leathery and that earthy and that cigar box and that, sort of that dusty character that comes with age, which I really, really love, which is classic Cabernet. Longer than that, I think it could, but I wouldn't feel comfortable saying lay this down for another 8, 9, or 10 years. Seth Nelson, what is the impact of a screw top versus a cork? Have you ever considered doing a screw cap, for example, on a rosé? Seth, that's a great question, talking about screw caps versus corks. Last year we did a rosé under a screw cap. This year we are doing our new rosé, our Viognier, and our Trevelyan white under screw cap. I think in a lot of ways it better protects the wine. The bigger question is, what is the psychological, kind of attitude to screw caps versus corks? I think there's still a barrier where the consumer think that there is a qualitative difference if you have two wines, the same packaging, one with a cork, one with a cap, with a screw cap. There is that perception of it's an inferior wine. I've got to drink it right now. That's the wine to age. So we still have to break down those sort of stereotypes when it comes to wine. What I love about screw caps is it's not an anaerobic seal. They actually have liners in there that allow a certain amount of oxygen ingress, so the wine can actually age under a screw cap, like it would perhaps on a cork. But you always have to sort of break down sort of the psychological approach to wine as well. Would we bottle Cabernet and Cabernet Franc under a screw cap right now? Probably not. But I think we're venturing more into screw cap and testing the market. And last year with the rosé, it was very well received. The wine was phenomenal. And I think it's something to move forward to in the next couple. So great question. Hope you guys are doing well.
So we've got a couple questions about people who have previous vintages. Kathy Hardin, Susan Glenn. If they have the 07 or the 09, should they be drinking those soon?
We're talking about a little bit about some older vintages. Our 2007 was the only Cabernet that spent 10 months in barrel. If you've got the 7, I would pop that right now. I had it a few months ago, 1 or 2 months ago, and it was lovely. But I think it's getting to that point where it's showing a little bit of age, and it's showing a little bit sort of, it's not tired per se where you dump it down the sink, but if you have the 7, I would drink that. It was the first crack at Cabernet. It had Merlot in it, which made it a bit more softer and more approachable, and it only spent 10 months in the barrel. The 2009, to this day, along with the 14 and the 16 and 17 and the 19, is one of my favorite vintages of Cabernet. I would drink that in the next sort of 2 to 3 years. You know, we're coming up on almost 8-9 years in the bottle. It was a phenomenal vintage, a bit cooler. It had great acidity. I would maybe drink that in the next year or two. But I think if you have the 7, you owe yourself the pleasure of drinking that wine. I've got 1 bottle left. And I know it's our Governor's Cup winning wine. I always promised I would drink every wine that I had. But the last time I had it, it's phenomenal. It's not going to see a few more years in the bottle. I think it's getting to that point. Subsequent vintages, 14, they might go a little bit longer. The 9, I would drink within a year or two. So thank you for that question. Lovely.
More questions?
Yeah.
So Lanny asked, do you vary the amount of time that the red wine is fermenting in the tank and you're punching it down before you press it, or do you follow like a formula?
Lanny White, do we follow a formula? I wish we did. I wish there was a formula. You know, I think it would be a little easier, but there's so many variables, Lanny, that you have to take into account before the grapes even come to the crush pad. You have the growing season, and you have the parameters of sugar, acid, and pH. And I think Scott Elliff asked a question of what sort of parameters are we looking at? You know, there's no specific parameters because ripeness is not ripeness at 24 versus 25. It's very much stylistic. But we sometimes get 25 and 26 bricks with our Cabernet with still a healthy acidity, you know, 3.7, 3.8 pH, which is phenomenal. We look for a little bit of dimpling on the skins where they start looking a little bit like a golf ball, but we're not looking for the flavors to be raisinated where you have that sort of cooked fruit. We handle it very gently. We process it very gently. And in previous years, we used to do a lot of sort of uninoculated and native fermentation. It sort of fed into the philosophy of individualism from your vineyard, and part of that is the microflora that comes in on the grapes as well, right? Because at the end of the day, we're trying to express the vineyard. So to answer your question, Lanny, we have an idea of what we would like to make, but we have about 50 different ways we can get there. So we do not have a formula. We went from warmer fermentations to cooler fermentations. We went from every 2 hours punching down to every 4 hours to 3 times a day. We went from cold soaking pre-fermentation to none. We've done 1 or 2 weeks post-ferment macerations to not. We've done free run wine only. We've added the press wine. At the end of the day, we have that style in mind. We have a duty to sort of build upon the wines that Keswick is known for. And I think I hope we have a wonderful reputation of producing an incredible varietal of Cabernet Sauvignon. So we want to make sure that we create a style that is consistent year to year despite the vintage variations. Comes back to the point where when you have vintages that are really not conducive to growing Cabernet, we're not going to do it. So as a winemaker, I think you have to have the ability to change direction and change course. Based on tasting, based on what Mother Nature gives you. You know, it's something like oak aging. We don't know what barrels are best. Are they French? Are they American? Are they new? Are they old? Are they small? Are they puncheons? Are they fougères? You know, a lot of times we taste and go, yeah, I don't think we got that right. You know, so let's pull it out of this barrel and put it into that barrel. Let's blend. Let's take a little bit of this block versus that block. So I wish it was formula based to a certain extent. But we also want to make sure that at the end of the day, we're also promoting wines of character, We not want to make wines that are, we don't want to make wines that are manufactured. This is a artisanal project. This is more artistic than it is scientific. We're farmers, and again, for me, it's more important for wines to have an intellectual sort of stimulating and an emotive stimulation. So yeah, it's fun to try the vintage variations. It's hopefully a theme which is vineyard derived, but I can promise you with the 9 and the 10, and then to the 17 to the 19, the methodology of how we got there, very, very, very different. What we want to make sure that you do when you drink it, it's recognizable as Virginian, as Keswick, and you think it builds upon, and it's every bit as good as every Cabernet done. But the problem is we got there in 10 different directions, and we don't always know what we're doing. It's a learning process, and that's the scary part. Wait for our vines to get another 5 or 10 years on them. Let me get another 5 or 10 vintages under my belt learning these vineyards. I still think the best grapes are to be harvested. I think the best Cabernet is yet to be made. As we say, these wines are better than last year, but never as good as the next. But this sets the bar pretty high. But it's a phenomenal question. But we do not have a recipe. It's intuition, it's experience, and we're now gaining a little bit of that, and it's an understanding of our vineyard, which is incredibly, incredibly important.
And then some questions from Sarah Cron, City and Miller. Questions about different formats, like large format bottles, any plans for those, and the advantage of that, canned wine, boxed wine.
Oh, Lordy. So let me ask, the question is the formats of bottles. Obviously, we're dealing with the very standard 750 mils. A lot of people do 375 half bottles if they want to do a wine by the glass program in restaurants. But there are larger formats, magnums, obviously. You get Rehoboams, Jeroboams, Nebuchadnezzars, Salazar, and Goliaths. The advantage of bigger format wines is number one, there's more wine for you to drink, which is great, but they age longer because there's more wine and less oxygen. So the wines, if this were bottled under a 3-liter bottle, would I say 5 to 7 years? I'd probably say 10 to 15. So there has been thought of it. We are chatting about it, but that's sort of the first sort of positive when it comes to that. In terms of canning, we have thought about canning. We haven't really talked about box wine, and again, it's that sort of psychological approach. Wine in a can is not as good as wine in a bottle. Wine in a box is definitely not as good as wine in a bottle. I think with alternative packaging and trying to meet younger folks and trying to sort of break down the stigma of wine, at the end of the day, our job is to make sure that we reach a new audience. Again, the average American drinks 1 bottle of wine a month. 30% of Americans don't even drink, but 1 bottle of wine a month. How do we get people drinking wine? The first thing I think we do is we got to break down sort of the social stigma of wine, that it's snooty and let us worry about how to make it and how to do this. Let's make sure it's approachable, it's whimsical, it's fun to drink. We talk about descriptions in ways that people can understand. I go to restaurants and sommeliers kind of talk around me and go, you're having this with this. Absolutely not. At the end of the day, it's drink what you like, how you like, when you like. So I think there is value to wine in a can. I think there's value to wine in a box. The question is that the brand that we have? Is that what we want to communicate? But it's very important that we reach new audiences. So that's always discussed. How does our brand evolve? How do we get better? How do we reach new audiences? Because those 20 and 30-year-olds, they represent the next 30 and 40 years of wine consumption. And that is important because we want to be very true to the brand that we have, but we also want to make sure that we're accessible to everyone, whether you are a novice, whether you like sweet wines. We want to make sure that we have something for you. And perhaps box and a can wine is a great conversation starter about wine. So everything's on the table. Nothing's not spoken about. All right, where are we? Oh my Lord. Don't go anywhere, folks. We still want to talk about the June bundles and all the other things. I know we're chatting a lot. I apologize. I just really, really love the Cabernet. So let's take 1 or 2 more questions. Let's talk about how you can get the last of this wine and what our wines are in June. And then I have a question for you, and then we'll go from there. So,
Michael France asked, any chance of a 2020 cap?
Michael France, 2020 Cabernet. Yes, there is every chance that we are going to make at least 6 bottles of Cabernet. Everyone knows that Mother Nature has been testy. You know, we've had flooding, we've had frost. It's the year of the cicadas. This story is well written in the Bible, so now I'm just waiting for the rivers to turn red. But the great news, and the really great news, is we have Cabernet Sauvignon, we have Cabernet Franc, Merlot, and Petit Verdot in our vineyards. And we are estimating that we might make a couple of hundred cases. I give you this guarantee, there will be a 2020 Cabernet if Mother Nature gives us a chance, and we will work our hardest and our damnedest to make it the best wine we've ever made. Let's focus on the fact that, let's be defined by how we finish. So yeah, we had a rough start, but I always said we're resilient and we're going to bounce back. And we might not make the kind of volume that we do, but there's every reason to be optimistic that the growing season could be one of the best. In 2016, by the way, 2016, we had 2 frost events, April 9th and April 12th. We got down to 16 degrees on our property. I know Kath's sitting next to me, and she remembers we were up all night. We burnt everything. We flew helicopters. The only thing we didn't burn was the helicopter. We didn't have a lot of fruit then. And look at the kind of wine that we made. So in 2020, yeah, rough start, but I am very, very optimistic that although we might make less wine than normal, we might make incredible wine, and that's the hope. Because, if we make a Cabernet, it's going to be every bit, and it's going to be better than the 19, and I can promise you the 19s are incredible. All right. So I know we got 1 or 2 more questions, but before I monopolize all your time, let's talk about some bundles and how you can get this wine. So we only have 32 bottles of this wine left, of this 2016, and we want you to have it. You should have it. It's a wine to drink. It's a wine to put in your cellar. So first come, first served. 5% additionally on your wine club discount for bottles 1, 2, and 3. But if you buy 3 bottles, we'll throw in free shipping. If it's 1 or 2, it's the 5% over and above your normal discount. Shipping is not, unfortunately. But let's talk about the June bundle. People have been asking. It's on the website. It's at the retail price. But if you click on it, you go through the process, it'll click in your discounts. The shipping is free as well. What is the bundle? It is our 2019 Le Vendange Rosé. It's our 2019 Estate Viognier. It's our 2019 Estate Blended Trevelyan White. And it's our 2019 Estate Blended Trevelyan Red. All these wines are bottled on Friday except for the Viognier. So one thing to remember is it will ship the following week, which means the following Tuesday, June 2nd, we don't have anything to talk about. So the question for you is, I'm here, I'm available. What do you want to talk about? Because the bundle tasting will kick in June 9th and the following 4 Saturdays in June. I thought, let's dip into the cellar and open up that 1 bottle of wine you've always wanted to open. Maybe this is the time to drink in the 2007. A couple other things. We are open. Reservations. Call the tasting room. Get your reservations. We are practicing social distancing. We're taking every precaution to make sure that you can visit us safely and that your experience is wonderful. We started having music. We have music this Saturday. We have a food truck the following Saturday. And talking about food, if you want incredible pizza delivered to you, Blue Ridge Pizza on Wednesdays, you can place your order at 12 p.m. on the day with a bottle of wine and we'll bring it to you. If you don't like pizza and you want quesadillas and burritos, Pharmacy will do that on Thursday. Again, you place your order at 12 p.m. on Thursday and we'll bring you the wine and the food. So there's a lot going on. So, you know, we're coming up to an hour. It goes really, really quickly. Again, what I want to do is pour myself another glass and kind of see how this wine's evolving, because now it's kind of warmed up a little bit. I always say we drink our reds a little too warm, so this had a touch of chill. Can you deliver pizza to Ohio? Can we do that? I would love to get in the car and bring it to you. You know, you might place the order on Wednesday. It might get to you on Sunday. I don't know if that's going to work, but we would love to, unfortunately. But here's the Cabernet. Again, just really sort of beautiful aromatics, you know, lots of fruit, lots of sort of chocolate. You get a little sort of minty and eucalyptus. Now, it's an interesting descriptor. Mint and eucalyptus, I think of the areas are warm enough that you don't get the pyrazines, but they're still cool, and you have that sort of nice vibrancy. I don't think it's underripe. I think it's just a beautifully vibrant, expressive Cabernet that's not showing massive oak. It's showing structure, it's length, it's elegant, it's full-bodied, and it's young and it's youthful. So yeah, I think it gives you immense drinking pleasure right now. You know, as you can see, immense drinking pleasure right now. But it's a wine that you can also put it down, you know, for a couple of years. So let's see if there are any other questions, and then we'll kind of finish up, and we'll let me know what we're going to talk about next Saturday, or next Tuesday rather. Sweetie, do we have any other questions of?
Maureen Smith asked when she could pick up the 2019 Chard.
Maureen asked, when can you pick up the 2019 Chardonnay? We actually made 2 Chardonnays this year. The 2019 Chardonnay, that's tank fermented and matured, is available. It's on our website. It's in the tasting room, so you can pick that up right now. I believe the price is $29.95. The Estate Reserve, which is a phenomenal Chardonnay that was tank fermented and aged in neutral oak, that'll probably be bottled in July, and will probably be available for pickup soon after as well. So get on our website, keswickvineyards.com, or call the tasting room, and it's 244-3341, extension 105. Karen or Sarah or any one of our tasting associates would be happy to help you and make sure you get that beautiful wine. Let's see, anything else? So, what did you guys think? You know, I'm not seeing the comments. If you have this wine, do you like it? Do you love Cabernets? You know, I'm excited about Cabernet, and I'm thrilled. It's really become my passion project at Keswick, partly because everyone says you can't grow Cabernet. The thing about sort of rules is that there's always going to be a rebel, right? I'd love to think Keswick has the ability, in most years, has the ability to create a beautiful, beautiful Cabernet. Marine Hamilton Scott, what is the Trevelyan Red and White blends? Fantastic question. The Trevelyan Red is dominantly Cabernet with some Petit Verdot in it, from our young blocks. Vineyards that I think in time, once they mature, would create incredible fruit. But for right now, I think we're saying that they're phenomenal as Trevelyan Red. The Trevelyan White is a blend of Viognier and Vidal. There's no oak involved. It's tank, so it's crisp, it's vibrant, and it's dry. It's lovely. I know some of the staff have tried it. If Sarah's on here, she's tried it. Sarah, let them know what you think of the wines. I love them. It's a wonderful bundle. It's a seasonal bundle. If you're looking for wines on the porch, wines on these summer days, these humid days, the rosé is fantastic. The Viognier and the Trevelyan White are just, you know, incredibly, you know, vibrant. And then our Trevelyan Red is just a, you know, you're going to feel bad because you're going to drink the whole bottle. It's that good. It's that good. So let's see. Let's take 1 or 2 more questions, and then let me love and leave you. Let you go back to your families. So is there anyone we didn't get to, sweetie? I think there was a question from Scott Elliff from Ducard Vineyards. Scott, I hope you're doing well. Hope business is well. About picking parameters, it's a great question. We look for, again, firstly, acidity, I think is really important. Conservation of acid in Virginia is really, really important because we're generally a low acid producing state. So acidity, but we're looking for physiological ripeness, so brown seeds, skins that are developed, color pigmentation, and if that's at 24 and a half bricks, 25 bricks, so be it. But we want to pick on acidity and freshness and pH, and then obviously we want to make sure that the berry and the condition of the berry, there's no rot and it's clean. So those are some things we look at with some other stuff as well. Are corks for aging a long time saying 15 years more expensive. Marlene Red Door. There are corks that are more expensive. Natural cork is generally more expensive than technical corks. The technical corks that are designed for long-term aging, truthfully, are a bit more expensive than the 5, the 2, and the 10. So absolutely. At the end of the day, the intention of the cork is to make sure it keeps the wine in the bottle. And why we moved to technical corks was to make sure that there was no chance that when you opened up our wine, you had cork-tainted wine. That is unacceptable. If you've never had our wine and it's the first time you've had it and we bottle it under a natural cork and we have cork taint on the wine, what a disappointing segue into Keswick wine. So, but yeah, there is a cost involved. It's not a major difference per se, but there are different cost levels for the different types of corks that we use. Let's see. So, alrighty, it's now 8 o'clock, and again, let's finish off positively. Again, the message is, number one, thank you for spending some time with me and our wines. We appreciate your support. Be safe, be kind, be the best you can be. Go out and have an incredible week. Have a wonderful weekend. If you choose to come and visit us, we would love to see you. I promise you we're taking every precaution to make sure that you and your family are safe. Check out our guidelines. There are guidelines. Check out our website. Call if you need us to walk you through it. But again, I enjoy these. I enjoy swirling. I enjoy sniffing. And most of all, I enjoy sipping with you. So again, from our family, my family, Kath and Aria, and our family from the winery, the Schonbergs, and to you, who we always regard as our family, God bless you all. Have an incredible day. Thank you so much. I hope you love this wine as much as I do. We just enjoy growing it. We enjoy making it. I promise you the best is still to come. The 16 is beautiful. The 17, there was a question about our Block 717. Our Block 17 is actually still in the barrel. We're actually aging it for 3 years. That gets bottled this year, and then the 19s again just build on what we've done in the past. And 2020, there's no reason to suggest that 2020 might not be incredible vintage. So check out our website, take advantage of the bundles and the wine. We appreciate your support. Tell everybody you love them. Pick up the phone, reach out. Have a great day. Thank you so much. God bless you. And let me know what we're going to talk about next week, Tuesday. But our bundle tasting will begin June 9th. And that again is the Rosé, the Viognier, the Trevelyan White, the Trevelyan Red. Next week, it's just whatever you want to talk about. Let me know. Let's have some fun, but God bless you guys. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Until next week. Bye-bye.